This conference will now be recorded.
There we go. This video will be recorded, so in case you have to step away, a kid interrupts you while we're talking, or if you just space out, this will be recorded and Jamie will email that out to you afterwards. But on our website, look at this. This is our website. It looks just like that. Under Robot Grant, or you can go to STEM Programs, Robotics, we have other grants available. So when I talked about a recruitment grant, you can find it right here, apply for a robot grant. Here's that recruitment grant where we pay $150 to any coach that recruits another school. Robot resources, this entire PowerPoint that I'm gonna go through today, it lives right here. So you can see like slide 1, this was at 9 a.m. But here is those slides, the objectives as I already pointed out. So this PowerPoint is right at the very bottom under robot resources. So the video is going to be recorded. The entire PowerPoint's on there. If you guys ever want to download the PowerPoint and use it for anything, you guys can do any of that. You have access to it. So anyway, I just wanted you to be aware of our website and what's on there. All right, let's dive into some stuff. All right, there's going to be 3 people that I'm going to introduce 2 of them today. But there's going to be 3 different groups that are going to help you throughout the year. One is called VEX. One is called the REC Foundation, or the Robotics Education Competition Foundation, and then TechPoint Foundation for you. I'm going to say this now. You might forget it down the road, but I tell this to you now because I'm about to introduce you to Randy and Emily who work for REC, but here's the difference in who they all are. VEX sells VEX robot parts. There's a website. If you go right now to vex.com, you can buy VEX parts. The kit that we buy you for our grant comes from VEX. They sell robot parts. REC comes out with a new game every year, and they have rules, and they're like the NFL of robotics in a way, and they regulate the events and competitions. And when you sign up for an event, it's on REC's website. So they're the competitions, they're the rules, they're the games, they're a nonprofit. And you actually have a regional support manager named Randy. Actually, they have new titles now, and I forgot what they are, but there's a slide here coming up. I'll explain that. And then there's TechPoint Foundation for you. We don't have a direct affiliation with any of these. We partner with these to give you all grants. We put on teacher training like we're doing right now, and we support coaches throughout the year if they have questions along the way where they get stumped or they don't know where to get help. That's what Andy and Jamie and Bree and I are here to do to help you. So VEX sells products. REC manages the registration for events and your team, the competitions and the game, and then we provide grants. These 2 are home-based in Texas, and TechPoint Foundation for Youth is located in Indianapolis, Indiana. All right. So speaking of REC Foundation, there are 2 people on this call. Randy, is Emily on the call too?
I think so. Can you speak up, Emily?
Yes, I'm here. I'm traveling, so I can't be on camera right now, but I am here listening.
Hey, no problem. I just wanted to introduce both Randy and Emily. I haven't memorized their titles yet because Randy just 3 weeks ago was the regional support manager, but he is now the event engagement manager, and Emily is the team engagement manager. And we put kind of their descriptions below, but in a nutshell, Randy is going to manage all the events in Indiana. Why that's important is because the goal of your robot season is to get to 1, 2, or 3 events this year, including maybe even state. We'll talk about that later. And Emily is managing helping teams. So she's helping assign, if you want to register a second team, if you know of another school that wants to start a team, we can provide you the grant. And Emily will help with the registration process if you guys have questions along the way. So their emails are there. You're going to see emails from Randy and Emily throughout the year. Know that they're the good guys. They're great people to work with. They're not trying to sell you anything. They're not in sales. They work for a nonprofit. They're trying to help out. So if you ask us a question and it is an REC answer, you might see that Jamie or Robot Grant at TechPoint Youth will say, that's a great question. I'm going to refer you to Emily because Emily might need to help you. Or if it's about an event or a competition you attended, Randy might have to step in and help you. But if it's a coach-related question, you're having problems with you have 27 kids that want to join your team, or you have 200 kids that want to join your team, you don't know what to do, we can help you with something like that. So anyway, know Emily and Randy are advocates, and they're located here in Indiana as well. They are the Indiana resources for you for REC. All right. Oh, and then when you guys break up, the high school coaches, you guys will go with Randy and Emily, and they'll talk VRC with you. All right, so I told you that you guys have IQ and VRC on the same call today. I just wanted you to see the differences. You might not ever see these two robots at the same competition unless you go to state or the world championship, where both elementary, middle, and high school will be competing. But most of your events, you're only going to see robots of the size and scale that you compete with. So if you're elementary, any competition you go to, you're only going to compete with high school or with elementary. You're not going to see high school people there. You're not going to see a metal robot on a plastic robot field. They would beat you up, right? Not physically, like punch you, but your robots would probably run you over and you would crumble. So we do not put the elementary and middle school or high schools in the same competitions. They are segmented out. But the reason why I wanted to show this to you is that you're going to hear Bex IQ and Bex VRC. IQ is elementary and middle. Bex VRC is complicated because there's middle and high school, but there's really not many middle school VRC. Last time I checked, there's about 20 in the state, where for IQ in a normal year, there's 1,200 IQ, and for VRC, there's hundreds. Normal year is about 300. So there's about 300 high school teams. There's only about 20 middle school VRC. But anyway, they're very similar. One's plastic, one's metal. That's the easiest way to know. Is if you're an elementary, middle school teacher on this call, you're doing Bex IQ. You have a plastic robot. All yours plastic. You're going to play against other plastic robots. If you're a high school on this call, you've got VRC. They're like a metal rector sets with motors and controllers. And every competition you go to will have metal robots. All right, this is what the fields look like. So we're going to dive deeper into the game and how it works, but just so you can see the difference, because again, if you're IQ, you probably won't ever see a VRC field until state. But IQ, it's played on a 6 foot wide by 8 foot long field. Everything on the inside changes every year with the game. And then the VRC field is 12 foot by 12 foot. This perimeter and the gray kind of padded flooring stays the same every year. It's the game pieces and elements that change every year. And anyway, this is the contents of the two kits that we buy. Here's called a Bex IQ Super Kit or a Bex VRC Competition Kit. All right, so for those of you like taking notes, or you want to take a screenshot of this, or remember it's on this entire PowerPoint's on our website. This is probably one of the #1 questions we always get is, when do I need to start doing things? Well, I don't want to put a lot of pressure on you, but typically we have these trainings in June, July, August, and this is the last training we have of the year, because technically we don't start doing things until about October. So October is starting very, very soon, as we all know. So what this typically means is, we're sitting in June and July, I'd be telling coaches, get back in the swing of things of coaching or of teaching. Start thinking about your assembling your team in September, and then your seasons should start in October. We don't have the luxury of that anymore. If you're going to coach a team this year, you all need to get started right away. Meaning you need to figure out your schedule, assemble a team, and maybe some of you already know this, but you want to start assembling a team. Questions always asked, how many kids should be on my team? 6 to 8 is a good starting number. 6 to 8 kids, whether that's elementary, middle, or high school. 8's a high end, 6 is probably more of an average. If you have 15 kids that want to join your team, you're considering or talking about 2 teams then. And that means you would have to purchase a second kit. It's pretty common that a lot of schools have 2, 3, 4, or 5 teams. They all practice in the same room. You could sometimes get away with one field that you all practice on, but it'd be similar to having a basketball team that has an A team, B team, and a C team. And that's what happens in robotics. Most teams are starting practicing in late September, early October. practicing all the way through November, and competitions are going to start as early as November. Most of them start in December, January, and February. Depends on where you live. If you live in a community that has a lot of competitions, if you live in central Indiana, you might have access to a lot of competitions. But if you live in Plymouth, Indiana, you might have access to only 1 or 2 options. So it depends on the area you live in. And unfortunately, COVID has put another kind of damper on how many events we have. 3 years ago, 2019-20 school year, just before the COVID hit, we had about 130 events throughout the entire state. Right now, we have about 50. So not as many as we typically have. So competitions are a lot more scarce, but we also don't have as many teams as we normally do. But what you need to know out of all of this, start your team, assemble your team ASAP. Start signing up for a competition near you. And I'm telling you, sign up for a competition in October, even if that event doesn't happen until January. A lot of people do not wait to sign up for a competition until their robot is built and ready. I'm telling you, that's the wrong strategy. It's the same idea that when you tell your kids you have 6 weeks to build a project, if you never give them the due date, they will build that project forever and they'll never stop. And then they'll say, well, I'm still working on it. I'm not ready to turn it in. You need to set sign up for an event to set a deadline for your team, and it will add pressure. That's okay. That's a good, healthy pressure for your kids to work towards that date. So sign up for an event in October for an event that will take place in November, December, or January. I would say November. It's a little bit earlier, a little early to sign up for an event for teams that are starting right now. But if that's your only event in your area, that might be your only option. Okay. If you have questions about this, throw them in the chat. We're happy to answer questions. I would tell you the season ends when state happens. So if you don't make it to state, your season's done after your last event. But state this year is scheduled for March 12th at Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. If you make it to state and then you do not advance to Worlds, your season's done in March. But if you make it to Worlds, then your season might all go all the way until April. And this year it's in Dallas, Texas. If you can't travel to Dallas, then maybe your season's done in March. So just to give you an idea, start your robot team in October. November, December, January, February are events. March is state, and then April is Worlds. I would tell you, and if you have the luxury of maybe living in Indianapolis and you have access to a lot of events, the number one, and there's a slide that I'll talk about, the number one suggestion that coaches give to first-year coaches is go to more than one event if you can. Your first event you go to, your team will not do well. The robot will fall apart. It won't do what it did in the practice at your school. And so I consider your first event as like a practice run. Your second event, things start happening for the good. Your kids start learning a lot more. They learn from the mistakes they made. They learn from other teams at that first event. So if you can go to 2 events this year, much, much better of an experience for you. All right, I'm gonna move on. If you have questions, throw it in the chat. All right, so we're done through, we're through the introductions, we're through the logistics. We're gonna spend some time talking about what is robotics and why it matters. So we could just hand out a grant where we buy you a robot kit, ship it to your house and say, good luck, figure out how to coach a robotics team. And you would get a big mixed bag of things. A lot of those robots, unfortunately, would collect dust and they'd never be touched. Coaches would open it, look at it and say, I don't know how to do any of this, and quit. A few of them would succeed and start a robotics team. We've had a lot of success by putting on this training. And so therefore, you're gonna have to sit through these next 10, 15 minutes of slides because I wanna make sure that everyone gets on the same page as to why TechPoint Foundation for Youth supports robotics, why we think it's one of the best things that we can do to provide our students to prepare them for the real world. So what is robotics and what it matters, or why does it matter? I always like to start, very first question, and we'll engage in the chat. Why are you choosing to start a robotics team? Now, some of you might be honest and just say, well, my coach, unfortunately, or my principal signed me up. That's an honest answer. I'm a new teacher and my principal said you have to do this. That's an honest answer. Or some of you say, I would love to hear, why are you starting a robotics team? So in the chat, we've got, how many people do we have on this call, Andy? 35. I'd love to see, minus Andy, Randy, Emily, and I'd like to see about 30 responses. Very short and sweet. Why are you starting a robotics team? No one else would do it. Well, thank you, Jamie, for stepping up. Brooke, that's a great exposure. No wrong answers here. Zach, that's good. I think I don't know who said that their other coach quit and no one else would step up. I'm glad you're stepping up. Great recruitment tool for my robotics class. Awesome, Joe. I had help at the high school, FRC. Oh, that's great, Jennifer. Awesome, good. So yeah, scroll through those, check out the different reasons. I mean, I think this is all positive things. I'm great to hear this. Unfortunately, we do get some people that are forced into it. They had no other choice. So they got the short straw, so to speak. I'm going to tell you right now, I coached high school. Well, let me tell you really quick. I was on a robotics team my senior year. It inspired me to go to Purdue to study electrical engineering. At Purdue, I helped mentor elementary and middle school robotics teams in Lafayette and West Lafayette, Indiana. And then I became a high school teacher. I actually switched majors to become a technology education teacher, and I coach robotics. And I've been involved in robotics since 1999. So I like to brag that Randy is older and wiser than me, but I've been involved in robotics for longer than Randy has been coaching robotics. And Randy and I were rival coaches at one point in time, but now we're alliances and helping start robotics teams. But this is one of the best experiences I've been able to provide my students. I taught technology education for 10 years in high school, and I taught 12 different classes, all electives where kids would choose to take my class, and all were engineering based or manufacturing hands-on vocational based. Even though my robotics team was an after-school robotics event, kids had to do it after school, it was the best thing I had that prepared kids for the real world. Way better than any of my classes, way better than anything I could do in the 90 minutes I saw my kids every other day. So it is one of the best things I've really have dedicated my last 5 years of helping provide robotics to all of you as first-year teachers or first-year coaches. Not first-year teachers, I bet a lot of you have been in the classroom for a long time. You guys are gonna love the experience. So one of the things that we find is really important is to disprove the myth that all engineers are old white men. And we all think of engineers as Albert Einstein or scientists as Albert Einstein. And we've got all these movies and this is what we think of engineers. We want to make sure that you think of the other students in your classes that might not pursue engineering because they don't know anyone in their family who's an engineer or in programming. Think of the girls that think that engineering is just for boys. Engineering or robotics is a great way to expose those girls, those young girls that are creative and have these really great ideas. It's a great way for them to thrive and give them confidence that they can be good at robotics, therefore they might become an engineer or a programmer. It's a great way to get those kids, and we're going to talk about kids that are unattached or don't like school or hard to crack the shell or get them to talk because they're so shy and reserved. It's a great way to get kids excited about learning and thinking. In the chat, what do engineers do? This is a question I like to ask my students. What do engineers do? Throw it in the chat. Again, probably no wrong answers. Think, tinker, design, build, communicate, collaborate, think, problem solve, build products, design. I love it. I love it. So I'm going to pick on Sarah Kelber. Sarah, where's Sarah? Raise your hand, Sarah. Oh, there's Sarah. Sarah, you got the right answer. There were some other people that said it. And again, there's not that any of these other things were wrong, but there's so many different types of engineers. There's chemical engineers, mechanical, material, electrical, civil. I already said that. Astronaut. There's so many different types of engineers. But what do they all have in common? Is they solve problems. And that's a theme I use throughout the entire school year. When a robot breaks and falls apart, they'll come to you and say, Miss Thompson, my robot fell apart, can you fix it? You say, no. Be an engineer and solve a problem. Figure out why did it break so it doesn't break again. Improve that design so it doesn't break again. So it doesn't break during the competition when it's put to the test. So I love talking to kids about what engineers do. I love to have them talk about engineers solve problems, and that is what these kids are doing, is they're learning how to solve problems. I like to sometimes ask, does anyone know who Ada Lovelace is? And she's becoming a little bit more popular, but a lot of people don't realize that she was a mathematician known for being the first computer programmer. She created what's called the algorithm for this counting machine. And a lot of people, if I ask, who do you think the first programmer, what would they look like? You would think of, again, an old white man. And a lot of people don't realize that Ada Lovelace is credited to being one of the very first programmers. And then if I pointed out these guys and say, who are these two guys? Some of you won't even know, but we use Google every single day in so many different things. But a lot of people don't even actually know who these people are. Now, Tesla's getting a little more popular, but he didn't invent the car. He invented an AC current, an inductive motor, actually radio frequency. He's credited for documenting his journals for actually wanting to design a remote controlled human, like a robot. So you can, in a far-fetched stretch, could say that Tesla almost invented a robot. Why I point this out is because these types of people are not glamorized in our everyday world. If I turn on the news right now, I'm probably going to see how lousy the Colts played this weekend, how Carson Wentz is hurt, how the Colts aren't going to the Super Bowl, how LeBron James, what's he up to, and what is Kevin Durant doing right now? Things that don't really matter. It's entertainment, but it consumes us on news, on social media, and our schools invest so much money in athletics. But these are the people that matter. Programming, we're consumed. Everything we do, a programmer had to do with or touch in the digital world. Google, think about how powerful Google is. Alternating current, all of us are right now using alternating current in our homes or in our schools in order to turn on the lights, turn on these computers. So it's interesting because these things actually matter, but we don't know about it because it's not enjoyable and fun to watch. And that's what robotics does. It makes engineering and programming attractive to actually sit in a crowd and cheer for something the kids created and are doing well. It makes engineering exciting. Can you imagine how boring ESPN would be if it was just a screenshot of a programmer typing code on the screen? No one would watch it. It would be boring. But a robot programmed to autonomously score points without any kids interacting with it on a robot they designed and built from scratch, now that's interesting. Stick that at Lucas Oil Stadium where the Colts play football and sit in this crowd and watch that happen. That is exciting. So we want to celebrate what kids are doing during the robot season with their engineering solutions. If you ask your kids who they want to grow up and be, these are the people they want to grow up and be. I didn't know the first one. Jamie added that. Apparently it's a YouTuber. Sorry, I didn't know. I bet you guys, I saw a few of you laugh at that. But LeBron James, Billie Eilish, like these are the people that our kids want to grow up to be like. Why can't we do something about it where they might want to grow up and be like these people and become engineers and invent something that actually changes the world for the better? All right, types of robotics attracts. So a lot of people ask me, what kind of students should join my robotics team? Well, I will tell you right now, because you'll have a problem on your hands. There'll be a good problem if you want to think of it that way, is how do I start my robotics team? Some people will say, well, I'm just going to have a school-wide announcement. If you want to join the robotics team, come to room 108. The problem is you're going to have more students than you can handle your first year. So I would suggest you carefully select what kids you should either invite or ask recommendations from other fellow teachers. But one thing that I suggest is take students from, if you're going to take 6 to 8 kids, so let's deal with 8, grab 4 from the grade below you and 4 that are in the grade that you're currently in. So if you're a 4th grade teacher, grab 4 3rd graders and 4 4th graders. Why I say that is those 3rd graders will hopefully have a good experience this year. And then when they move to the 4th grade in your grade level, they'll join your robotics team. And then what you're doing is reloading versus rebuilding your school year every year, or your robotics team every year. That's what you want to do. So even though those 3rd graders are going to be a little immature right now, they're going to have a lot of experience after their first year. But I want you to think, if you are carefully selecting your students, to think about the students that currently do not like to engage in school, but are creative, are good with their hands. They like working together in groups. Anytime you get Legos out, they're building, or blocks, they're building. Those would be a great type of student for your robotics team. And it doesn't mean that they have to love school. It could be the one that sits in the back corner with their head down and doesn't have a lot of friends. They're socially awkward. They don't involved in sports. So I want you to think of those different types of things that they could be all over the spectrum. It's not the ones that sit in the front row that raise their hand every time they have a question, you ask a question. You want to think about those kids. What are those kids that you would wish that you could do something for them that they would like school? I think robotics can help those types of students. What I always say is, a lot of people think about robotics and they say, why are we doing robotics? Why are we teaching kids to build a robot and compete on a competition field? What's the big deal? And the things that they usually think of is, oh, we're teaching kids to replace assembly lines and human labor. And then I say, no, that's not what robotics is. Oh, we're teaching kids how to build things. No, I mean, not really. Teaching kids how to program. Yeah, sort of, but that's not really the idea. What I think is important is the problem solving, the critical thinking, the communication, the creativity, the collaboration. These are called your 21st century skills. These are the things that I think that will prepare kids for the real world better than what we can do sometimes with our own classes. And I'm putting myself in that bucket of the classes that I taught. I thought I was teaching kids to prepare for the real world, but not all of my classes had a lot of creativity or collaboration, where kids were not communicating with one another. They worked on projects, but just in maybe groups of 2. This is where they have to work in groups of 8. And they all have different ideas. And I only have 1 robot though. 1 robot, not 2, 1 robot. 8 kids, 1 robot, 8 different ideas. That is a wonderful way to communicate and collaborate and to solve problems and think critically. So these are the skills I think that are most hireable no matter what area. We think as teachers, what we're trying to do, we're trying to prepare kids for the real world. That's what it boils down to, in my opinion. Robotics does a great job of that. This is something that Jamie pulled from Google of how to get a job at Google. Your cognitive ability is the ability to process on the fly. Your robot students, by the end of the year, are going to do this better than any other student in your school that is not involved in a robotics team, because they are going to, at competitions, run into problems where the robot breaks. They need to fix something, and they only have 3 minutes before the match starts. Or they have to do it in the middle of a match. Sometimes your robots will fall apart in the middle of the match, and the kids have to fix it in front of a crowd of thousands of people cheering. That's a lot of pressure. So if kids can do it then, think about what they can do in the classroom on their next test. Leadership. You're going to see kids emerge with a confidence, the ability to communicate to other classmates in a very professional manner. I'm talking first graders to high school kids. This is a great one. The ability to say, I don't know. And I feel like this is something as teachers, we need to learn how to say this. And this is going to put you to the test, because you're all going to want to know the answer, but I'm telling you, you don't all know the answer. So this is really important. Understanding that an organization problem is also your problem. Meaning, oh, my teacher's gonna take care of that. My robot breaks, she'll fix it. No. If something's problem with the team, it's your problem. This is a team effort. This is why I don't like calling your robot club. It's a robot team. Make sure you guys call it a team. Anyway, so great stuff here. Some braggable things I want to show you right now. Why is robotics, as I've said, the reason why we want to start robotics teams, we think it prepares kids for the real world better than any other program or school or class that we can provide right now. They think it's one of the best things we can do to prepare kids. Here's what Indiana looked like 5 years ago before we first started. There were 311 robotics teams. They were all concentrated in Indianapolis based off of a Mayor Ballard city-wide grant to help start robotics teams. When he left office, he went to TPY Foundation for Youth and said, go statewide with this. Here's what we did in the last 5 years. We took it from 311, we started 2,100 robotics teams all over the state of Indiana. I like to show the little dots because we are in every little city. We're in 90 of 92 counties. We're in over 51% of the schools. This is something that you should be very proud of. I am very proud of because we're trying our best to give opportunities for students all over the state, not just in our Indianapolis space, but in northwest corners of Indiana, all the way to the south corner of Evansville and Madison, Indiana, all over the state. And then competitions, I was wrong. I said 130. In 2019-20, we had 167 competitions. It started with just 12 competitions. So we have 167 competitions. Unfortunately, this year, this number is about 50. And it's growing, but it's not as many as we used to. But we tried to have one at least 1 hour away from every single team in the state. I saw someone in the comments said the closest one's an hour and a half away. I am sorry. Now, we will talk later on that if you want to host a competition, you can host a competition. In fact, Andy, Jamie, and I help new event partners in partnership with Randy from RAC. Anyone that wants to host a competition can do so, meaning you would have to travel to your school for that event. So that's just another event, another option. And then Randy just put in the chat that they have what's called a live remote tournament where you can actually host a competition remotely or participate in a competition remotely this year. So that's another option. If you don't see one by your school, look out for called LRT's remote live competitions. We'll talk about that a little bit later. All right, I only have 10 minutes before we need to split. I've got one last section, which is coaching robotics. I'm gonna go quickly through it. Here are my 5 check marks for how to get started. The very first thing I think you should all do is assemble your team and build, not you, your students, build the basic robot. So for IQ, it's called Fling. Oh, okay. They updated this. I don't know, I didn't see these things. I'm not sure what this is. This is the new Vex IQ kits, I guess. Anyway, down here, this is called Fling. This robot, if you click on it, it's just like Lego instructions that have step-by-step instructions. It's 67 pages. If your kiddos have iPads, this is you don't have to print off 67 pages. Pull this up on an iPad or on a projector. Step-by-step instructions on how to build the robot. Why I think this is a good start is this robot plays the IQ game. It doesn't play it perfectly, but it plays it pretty well. It picks up one ball, it flings it into the goal, and it can hang. Pretty easy. But you're going to have to want your kids to design a way to pick up 2 balls and throw maybe 2 balls and hang higher than the low ball and a way to push the balls out of the starting zone. So this is a starting, and I'm going back to my notes. This is a starting point, but you want to have the students improve their design. Do not show up to your competition with Fling. VRC has an equivalent. It's called Moby. This thing is so simple this year. You'll see how this game works this year. It just kind of flips these discs over, very simple. This robot doesn't take a lot of time compared to the other robots in previous years, This is a starting point. This has a lot of limitations, so you're going to want to redesign this to do more. But that's where I would start, just to give first-year students a platform to start on, and then have them improve, have students prototype new solutions. Try not to start over. A lot of kids will drive it. They'll go, oh, this thing stinks, and they'll want to scrap it completely. Try not to start over every practice. Try not to have them take everything apart. Sometimes it happens before you know it. You go and you're grading papers, you look up and the robot's in 50 different pieces because a little Timmy over there got frustrated and took it apart. Do not start over. And then practice driving. A lot of people spend all their time, and when I say time, it takes about 10 to 12 practices to get your robot built and to practice driving and to test it out and to improve before you're ready for a competition. So a lot of people will spend 9 to 10 practices and then 1 practice or 2 before the event to start driving it. Driving it is just as important. I say it's like taking free throws. Your kids want to take free throws over and over and over to get that hand-eye coordination. So when they have to do the free throw under pressure, they can almost do it with that muscle memory blindfolded. That's what your kids want to do with the joystick. They're used to playing video games. Let them play this video game. They have to practice that video game. All right, let's see who's awake still right now. How are we doing? Zach, you're in the dark, man. Are you still awake? Oh, Zach's alive. All right. I think you've been in the dark the whole time. Didn't mean to pick on you. How will you measure success? So the season's going to end after your last competition. That might be done in December. It might be after state. It might be after April. So let's say in May, if you look back, how will you measure success? How will you measure success? Ashley, to answer your question, yes, you can host a in-person and LRT event. Yes, had fun. We built a robot, attended a competition. Brandy, that's a great answer. If the students learn, that's exactly right. Students involved and grow, yes. Team members collaborated, yes, I love it. Entering 2 competitions, Tina was listening and placing somewhere while they had fun. Yep, good. These are the answers I wanted to hear. I'm glad we didn't get the awkward answer. I won state and made it to Worlds and ranked at Worlds because I didn't talk about that a lot. So I'm going to go into coaching ethics. I don't care about trophies, and neither should you. Now, I say this with a little asterisk because I am very competitive. Those with cameras on, how many of you are competitive? All right, Brooke, Zach, all right. Yep, I see some competitive people. That's good. I'm competitive as well, but your first year is survival. Get your team assembled, get them to build a robot, go to a competition, hopefully 2. That is success. Don't think about trophies or ranking well at competitions, making it to the finals until your 2nd or 3rd year, please. If you go into this trying to win with trophies, trying to beat all the other teams, you have the wrong attitude. And that's why I don't spend any of my time talking about how to win trophies, how to get better. I spend this training on how to get you prepared to start a team, making sure I've embedded in your head why we are trying to do this, what we're trying to accomplish. So think of it that way, please. Not think about winning trophies. So I'm telling you, as the president and CEO of TPY Foundation for You, I don't care about trophies, neither should you. Please don't feel like you need to win to be successful. Failing is okay when you learn from your mistakes. We are ingraining in our kids that getting an F on a test is awful and it's the worst thing in their life. And I'm telling you, that's actually okay to get an F on a test as long as the kids learn what they did wrong. Maybe they didn't study. Maybe they didn't understand the questions. Maybe they studied for the wrong section. They were just quizzed over chapter 9. They studied for chapter 8. They didn't listen. They didn't write it down right. They have to learn from their mistakes. So failing is okay when you learn from your mistakes, and there's going to be so much failure. That robot, even if you build it brick by brick, fling, it's not going to work the first time. They're going to have to learn how to adapt and modify and make it better. Their first competition, you might be in last place. You might actually, I hate to say this, but you might be the worst team there. That's okay. We all had to start somewhere. Someone has to be last place. It might be you guys. So going into these events, setting the right expectations are going to rub off on your students. So don't have a Bill Belichick mentality. Don't think you have to be the best. You want to go in not just have fun. They have to learn from their mistakes. They have to learn from what they did wrong. I want them to have fun, but I'm just saying, like, it's okay to be competitive. Just go in with the right attitude. Student run, student built, adult organized. This is really important, especially if you're going to have students help or adults helping you, or as some of you mentioned, high school students. Talk to them before we get started. I tell all my adults and high school helpers to put their hands behind their back at practice and don't touch any robot parts. Even if one falls on the ground, don't pick it up, because then your kids are going to think you clean up after them. You think that you will fix any problems that they have. Don't touch anything. It's not your robot, it's your kid's robot. Don't let your high school kids help your kid program the robot. Let them help, but don't let them do it. Please don't touch the robot. Don't touch the programming. Don't put things away for the kids. This is a student-run team. I hated it when I heard it. It kind of hurt my feelings when my kids would say it. But sometimes the kids would say, well, this is a student-run team, and Mr. Giltner, our coach, is really just our supervisor. He would just kind of open the door and turn the light on. I felt like I was more than that, but the idea is I didn't build the robot. I didn't tell them how to design it. I let them figure that out. I shaped and maybe gave some suggestions. I influenced a little bit, but I let the kids run into mistakes. I knew they were doing something wrong that would maybe cause the robot to fall apart. I let it happen and watch them put it back together. So student run, adult organized. No mom or dad bots. Don't let a family take the robot home. Now, in rare circumstances during COVID, if you guys can't practice for the next 6 weeks and you have an event and you want the kids to assemble at someone's house, that's okay. But sometimes the dads will say, Timmy and I are going to work on the robot tonight. Is that okay? No, this is a team's robot. It's not Timmy's robot. It's not the dad's robot. You know, dad's going to stay up all night playing with that and building it, and all of a sudden it comes home and it's a transformer and it can score all the points. No. Set those expectations early on. No mom and dad bots. You don't need to have all the answers. This is me telling you, you don't need to have all the answers. You're not going to walk out of training today knowing all the answers. So please don't feel like you need to know. We're going to show you where to get help. Okay, Randy and Emily, I'm sorry, it's 5 o'clock. It's actually 5:01, and I have like 3 more slides to get through, so I apologize. I'm going to go as quickly as I can. Randy and Emily, that just means you guys are going to have to talk that much faster, so I apologize. This is my emotional roller coaster that everyone will go through, including Randy and I, who have coached for many years. If we were coaching a team right now and we have all this experience, we would have these same emotions. Before you got our grant or before training, you were like, smooth sailing. I'm a teacher. I know what I'm doing. I can't say it's smooth sailing because we all know that it's not smooth right now. And then all of a sudden you got the grant, or you found out you're going to coach a robotics team and your stress went up and you go, what the heck did I just get myself into? Hopefully after today, the PD, you're going to say, I got this. Robot season starts. You're like, oh, all right, this is fun. Okay, cool. You can say shoot or any other 4-letter word you want to say here, but in the middle of this progress, you are going to have some problems and you're not going to have fun at times. But here's what I want to show you. You're going to panic and say, we don't have any time. You're going to sign up for a competition that you're not ready for. And I get every year a phone call from a coach that says, I signed up for an event this Saturday and we're not going to go. How do I cancel? And I'll say, well, why can't you attend? They'll say, because my robot isn't very good. I'll say, well, first off, it's not your robot, it's your kids. And second off, does it move? And if it does, you're going. If your robot moves this year, you can score points. And that's for VRC or IQ. If your robot moves, you're going to that competition. You might be in last place and you might not be good, but that is okay because in my stressometer roller coaster, that once you get to your first competition, you're going to say, what did I get myself into? But right after it, look what happens. This is every single person, I don't care who they are, after they get through their first competition, your stress is going to go down. And look at this. This is where you were at the beginning of the season. This is fun. And that's what it is like when you go to your second competition. That's what you are all trying to get to. And then at the end of the year in May, you will all be robot masters. And you guys can teach my class. So where do you get help? We are number 8. REC has a lot of resources. Check it out. We just told you about Coach's Corner. Please join. We pointed out the robot resources on our website. Great. Get a mentor or an assistant coach. How many of you have an assistant coach already? Someone going to help you? All right, Brandy. Brandy is in good hands. You all want to find someone to help you, even if it is a loved one's spouse, a brother, sister, or even if you have a kid that's, I don't care, a 5th grader would probably be good enough. You could have a 1st grader helper if you want. But if you even have a kid, you want someone in your corner helping you during practices. Talk to a neighboring school. If you're in elementary or middle school, get high school kids to come help you out. Okay. If you have team registration, competition, or general questions, email Randy. Oh, I'm sorry, Emily. I need to add you. Email Randy or Emily, depending on what it is. And you can go back to that slide to see who does what. If you have a VEX part, so the kit that you have, the battery is having problems, your motor's having problems, the remote's not turning on or connecting, this number or email VEX and they can help you out. Anything about coaching or grant, Tech Point Foundation for You, Jamie or I will get to you. Additional resources. There's an advanced coaches training on YouTube that I do every year for IQ. Eventually we need a VRC one, but right now it's just IQ. Check it out. It's everything you need for advanced coaches. I don't think you need that right now. You'll overwhelm yourself. I think this is something you look at this summer after your first year. And then also, if you want, everything I'm talking about is reiterated on this Colt education certificate. You even get an actual certificate you can print off and put on your refrigerator and show off to your spouse. There's an online training that basically walks you through on how to coach a robotics team. So additional resources. Here's your sample schedule. This is just the first 10 meetings of what I would do. First meeting, just team structure, game rules. How does scoring work for the game? No robot. Next 3 practices, if it's VRC, it probably only takes 1 or 2. For IQ, you'll need at least 3 or 4 to build Fling this year. Build your robot. Build that basic robot. Next, after you build a robot and you can see what it does, figure out what is your strategy. How are we going to play the game? A lot of teams want to do everything. They want to get all the balls off the wall. They want to get all the balls into the hopper. They want to get all. They want to hang on the highest bar. That's everything. You can't do everything your first year. Try to do 1 or 2 things, do them good, and then try to move on to a third. Anyway, you can read through this. I'm starting to run out of time, so I got to go a little bit quicker here. But after your 10th meeting, you're really just testing, redesign, practicing. Testing, redesign, practicing. It's called the design process. This is an engineering concept, and some of you may be familiar with it. It's brainstorming, prototyping, test, redesign, repeat to improve. You just do this over and over. You're going to do this at a competition. You go to 2 competitions, your robot might look different from competition 1 to 2. After your first competition, you're going to find out what works well and what doesn't. You can go and fix it between competitions, make it better. So your second competition, it performs better. That's okay. All right, this is what I want you all to have. You're the head coach. You have an assistant coach. You have a team. This is what typically most people have. You don't want this. This is going to create burnout. Find an assistant coach. If you have a lot of kids, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you have 8 kids, you'll say, how do I get all my kids involved? Here's how you get them involved. 1 kid's in charge of rules. 1 kid's the prototyper. 1 kid's doing research and design, looking on YouTube at other designs. 1 kid's the builder. 1 kid's in charge of electrical. This isn't really a job, but you can give it to someone. 1 person's in programming. 1 person's in charge of your pit team, which is all the things that you need when you go to a competition, like charging your batteries and your laptop and where am I going to store the parts? And then PR, it's like the name, the logo, your t-shirt design. You guys want to come up with the name. You guys want to come up with the logo. You guys want to have t-shirts and jerseys, just like sports teams. This is more common. A team that builds the robot, programs the robot, knows the field and the scoring, and then the design team. If this is the case, or if this is the case, what I'm asking you is do not put the girls over here. Put the girls over here. They're going to naturally sometimes flock over to PR, and I'm going to design the t-shirts. Nope, nope, nope. It's your job to get the girls to program, drive, or build that robot. Because that's how we're going to start breaking stereotypes that girls are the designers and they like art and that's all they can do. We need you as teachers to try to start breaking these stereotypes that girls can be builders and programmers. I'm telling you, some of the best programmers out there, drivers, are the girls. They're so creative. They're confident when we allow and enable them. So please encourage your girls to lean over here. All right, this is my last slide. No, I got one little story and then this is just a design to show that driving practice is equally, it's different, but it's equally as robot design. Don't spend 12 weeks designing and no time practicing. You want to practice driving. Now, this is more of a competitive suggestion, and I said I don't care about trophies, but it's nothing worse than investing 12 weeks of time on your robot and then your drivers are just driving in circles and running into walls. They deserve an ability to put the robot to the true test and not lose because they don't know actually the buttons and how to operate their robot. So make sure they're driving as often as they can to get familiar with the controls. These are additional resources that Jamie wanted to send to you. Check out this one, beginning of your presentation. This is great for your team, already put together. You can download it and modify it for yourself. I think she has a picture of her in it in the beginning. That's Jamie. You can make yourself if you want to, but these are all hyperlinks to different jobs and STEM labs and parts and VEX code and building designs and pitching in game and the schedule and calendar and expectations and rules. So many in there. Here's a presentation for your parents, the do's and don'ts of parenting. If you want to request money for support, here's a sponsorship letter. Team requirements and contracts if you guys want to have your kids sign a contract. Tryout requirements, teacher recommendations, a lot of great links here. Check them out. All right, this is the last thing. And Randy, I'm only 10 minutes over. I apologize. I swear we're going to get you guys out here at 6 o'clock. Randy talks less than I do, so if you're in my IQ, we're going to stop right at 6. This is the last one before we go. This is a story I always tell everyone that goes through my training program because I want everyone to understand. I want to reiterate and understand the importance of why we do what we do. Okay. So this was me at the World Championship. Doesn't matter. It's like 6 years ago at in Louisville, Kentucky. There are 140 elementary teams there. I had to talk and interview every single team. I asked them, tell me about your robot. Tell me about what you coded. What problems did you run into? How did you overcome it? Things like that. Out of 140 robots that I would go down the line and ask, and you're going to have these at your competition. Some of your events will have judges that will ask your kids questions. They have to communicate, and they can get awards based on the questions they answer. We don't talk about trophies, so we're not going to discuss that right now. This particular event, there were so many robots that were built the exact same way. And every single time I would say, how did you build your robot? And I found out that there were actually, someone posted the designs online of a very high scoring robot that could score every single point. And they were selling copies online and teams were buying the copies and building the robots, just like the award-winning design. And you could tell who did it. And you would ask them about the robot and they couldn't tell you how their robot worked. They couldn't tell you how they programmed it. They didn't know anything about it because they just copied from online. That's why I say the fling is just a starting point. Design your own robot. So I talked to this group that I think they're from New Jersey. 3 kids. They work out of their basement. The kid on the left and the kid on the right are brother and sister, and this is their next door neighbor. Their school did not have a robotics team. Dad was an accountant. As you notice, parents are not standing in the pits. They're away from the side. So there's me interviewing him. I say, tell me about your robot. This kid is in 2nd grade. His sister's in 3rd grade, and he's in 4th grade. First time ever building a robot. They're in last place. Their robot sucked. It was the worst design I saw, these were my favorite kids I spoke to and interviewed because they could tell me everything about that robot. I said, tell me about a robot. This kid right here tells me, he goes, all right, what we did is we created a robot that could pick up the balls by smashing into the wall, and they'd bounce into the hopper. And then what we had to figure out is how do we take a motor that has an output of rotational motor and make it go up using linear motion. So we decided to use what's called a rack and pinion. Are you familiar with a rack and pinion gear? I went to Purdue, so of course I know these engineering terms. But I act like I didn't know. I go, no, explain it to me. Well, it takes a rotational motor of a output of a motor and converts it to linear movement, which is called the rack, and allows our arm to go straight up. But then we ran into a problem is that we had to learn how to dump it. We couldn't mount the motor up high at the top because it would be too top heavy, and our center of gravity was too far back, so it would topple over. This is a second grader talking about center of gravity, talking about a rack and pinion, linear movement. And he even mentioned the term, he was talking about a crown gear that allowed to rotate a motor that was mounted below for a better center of gravity to convert the output to a 90 degrees. I don't think second graders are taught what 90 degrees is. Amazingly impressed. This girl programmed the robot and she showed me every line of code and how she programmed it. And then this boy was the driver and told me about all the problems they ran into and if they had more time, what they would do to redesign the robot. If you notice the way this works, most robots were picking up 15 to 20 little orange balls this particular year. They could hold on to 3. 1, 2, 3. And the robot, as I said, was in last place out of 140. And during the award ceremony, it was the most, I get goosebumps every time I tell the story. I think I've told it at least 50 times. When they said, and the judged award goes to team 246, these 3 little kids are screaming, and it was dead silence. Everyone's looking at how in the world did the last place team win the judged award at the World Championship? And the reason being is those 3 kids built this robot, knew every square inch about this robot, and I know they did it on their own, and they learned along the way because you've got a second grader here talking about some very high-end engineering concepts and terms, a girl that taught herself how to program it. This is the model team that I would like to see at every Indiana competition. This is what I strive for when these competitions, and this is what I strive up for you. If you guys take anything away from tonight, is like this is what robotics is meant for. It's to try to teach kids new concepts, to collaborate, work together, to problem solve, and gives them an ability to actually learn how to communicate with one another and adults. This is going to prepare these kids for the real world. These 3 kids are going to be hired. Well, shoot, they're probably near high school now. These kids are going to be hired right out of high school, maybe college right away. These are what we want our Indiana teams to look like. That's why I say I don't care about trophies and awards and points and maximizing how many points you can score. That's what we don't care about our first couple of years. We want to build a good foundation of ethics that's important to carry these teams to become better versions of themselves. So this is what I'm proud of. There's a lot of Indiana teams just like this, and if you stay with me in the IQ, I'm going to tell another story at the World Championship of a team from Napanee. But anyway, that's all I have for just about why robotics matters in coaching. I'm not going to take a 5-minute break now. We're just going to take a 2-minute break because I'm way over time, and I'm sorry, Randy. You know I talk and ramble a lot, so I apologize. But Andy, what's going to happen, elementary, middle, and high school, if you're in the elementary middle, you're going to stay with me. I'm going to put 2 minutes on the clock. I need to go get some water and stretch my legs. If you're in high school, Andy Fulton's going to put a link in the chat right now, which is a Google Meet link. So high school coaches, if you're coaching high school, you want to go to that link. You want to click out of this one. You don't want to have 2 of them up at the same time because I don't think your webcam and microphone's going to like that. So click on the link first so you go to the right place, and then get out of this. If for any reason you get lost or stuck and it doesn't work, you can always come back to the go-to meeting, but you want to be in the Google Meet if you're high school. Elementary, middle, stick with me. It's 5:17 on my clock. I'm going to put 2 minutes on the clock, and then we will come back in 2 minutes, talk about the game. High school people, thank you so much. for hanging out with me this evening. I appreciate you letting me tell the stories, and I can't wait to see you guys start your year this year, and hope you guys have a really successful season. All right, elementary, middle school, 1 minute, 50 seconds. Go grab a water or something else. You here in a little bit. All right, how we doing? We got 45 minutes, 40 minutes left. You guys can survive 40 more minutes.
Good. Yeah.
All right. Oh, hey, Krista, I didn't see you. Good to see you.
It's good to see you too, George.
Thanks for joining us.
I'm
Are you
having
here
a
from
great
the email? Are you helping your daughter's school? Is that right?
my daughter's school. My son is in 3rd grade.
That's right. Very cool. Awesome. Kristen, looks like you have a buddy joining you. Awesome. Zach, I apologize earlier for picking on your dark room. I thought you fell asleep on us earlier. Brooke, you have a very fun backdrop. I like to see what's going on, and David's at work today. All right, looks like Sarah's there too. Sarah, you in the office? Awesome. All right, well.
George, is there a separate room for the high school?
I'm sorry?
Is there a separate room for the high school?
There is. Check the link in the chat. Andy put it in there. I'll put it in there again.
Okay, you didn't say high school, so it threw me off. All right. Thanks.
Yep. You want to get out of the GoToMeeting one, and well, you want to click on that first, then get out of the GoToMeeting one.
All right.
Oh, Trish, Andy, are you there?
Yep. What's up?
Andy, some people in the chat are saying they're waiting to get in, so you might need to go in there. And I bet Randy doesn't see the notifications to let people in.
Yep, I will do that right now. I'll be right back.
Thanks, man. All right. Here's the last two. Oh, is there anyone that's in high school that can hear my voice? Because if you're from high school, you don't want to be in here. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna talk about the game, competitions, and then the robot parts, and then we're out of here. And I'm gonna do that in 20 minutes. So This is probably the most exciting, fun part of competitions or of robotics is every year there's a new game to play, okay? And it lasts the entire school year. So this is the history lesson of all the different games, and the one we're doing is in the bottom right corner. One year they had these little blue parts that you had to stick in these clear goals and hang on a bar. This you had to pick up these stacks of cubes and stack them up. These are the ones I showed you, the team from New Jersey. They pick up these orange balls and shoot them into the hopper. They can only do 3 at a time. You can see these 3 right here. They'd smash them into a wall. Hopefully they'd fall into the hopper. Normally they didn't. And then they try to dump it in this blue bucket. This year was really hard. Get the blue hex balls on this side, the orange ones on the right side. Wow, that was tough. Rings. Get the rings sorted and put them on these pegs. Hubs. Get these hubs stacked in the corners. You'll see a video I'll play. Well, this one was really challenging. Get these cubes stacked on these walls here, and then put these balls inside the cubes and shove them in the corners. This was a tough one. Blue ones go over here, red ones go on the other side. This was last year's. Maybe you guys saw it. Some of you guys may have tried to participate. You're putting hubs in kind of a tic-tac-toe assembly, and then we'll talk about this year's game. One thing that stays the same is that the field typically, the last 2 years, it's gotten 2 feet wider, but the field always stays the same. You can see it's just a big perimeter, 8 foot long. This was 4, now it's 6 feet wide. But the field stays the same. The game on the inside, the elements, the fun, like this was cubes, these were balls, these were hubs, these were rings, these were, I don't even know what these were called. I forgot. They're called risers. These are hacky sacks this year. So every year is a new game. So you have to design a robot to play that game. That's the fun part. That's the joy. And then every competition you go to will be this game until next school year. The 22-23 year will be a different one. We don't even know what it will be. All right. So here's what we include in the robot kit this year. Now, if you got our grant last year, I apologize that you're going to listen and hear about this, but last year we did not have the funding available that we did this year because of COVID. We really got hit with COVID. So this year we're buying the field, the game elements, a super kit, and a foundation kit, and we pay for your robot training, team registration, and your coaches training. Last year, all we could afford was a robot super kit and registration kit. So I apologize if you got gypped. I really am. Nothing I can do about that. Last year, we lost a lot of our typical funding sources. This year, we've done better. Do you need to pay for tournament registration? The team registration that we pay is for $150 is for your first team. If you want to go for a second team, you got to pay for it. If you're going to go to an event, you have to pay for it. The fee for the events this year are about $40. So if you go to 2 events, it's 40 plus 40, so $80. We don't pay for that. Next year, when you do a team and we don't pay for registration, it's $150. A second team is $100. Third team's $100. So if you had 2 teams, it'd be $150 plus $100. That's $250. Every event is $40. Okay. All right, I'm gonna play a video here. I don't know if it's gonna work. Audio wise, I might have to narrate it. I'm gonna unplug my thing. Can you hear me right now? Yeah. Yeah, okay, good. Thumbs up, great. I'm gonna try to play this video with my computer speakers talking to the microphone, but this is the video and I'm gonna explain how this works. It's a 3-minute video that explains the game.
Welcome to the 2021-2022 Exercise Challenge.
We lost the audio, George.
You say you lost the audio?
Yeah, we lost the audio.
Gosh dang it, didn't this happen last time? Might have been with Jamie. All right, I'm gonna narrate it. Oh, it looks like they have a caption. I don't have to narrate it at all. I guess I could say those words, but you guys could look at it. There's the scoring object. The diameter of 3 inches, or 76 millimeters. I think you got to hear it dimly. The object of the game is to score as many points as possible, and there's different ways. 2 points for pushing it below the goal, 6 points for shooting it into the goal up top, 5 points for clearing out the wall, and there's 5 balls along the wall on both the left and right side. And then they're gonna hang, and a low hang is where there's a low hang, 6 points, and a high hang is 10 points. 10 points, that's a high hang, and I'll break down each of these. Now, this is also going to show you there's 2 different ways to play. Now they're still hanging. Oh, there's 3 ways to play. That got really complicated. I don't know why they're moving around so much. All right, so here's the 2 different ways to play. This is every event you go to, it's going to have 2 robots on the field, called Teamwork Challenge. 2 robots on the field, and then you'll have 2 drivers from your team operating your robot, and 2 drivers from the other team. And then they have 60 seconds to score as many points as they can. After 30, they're going to have to hand the remote over. After 30 seconds, they hand the remote to the second driver. Then there's a skills tournament. I'm going to explain this as well. Skills is just your robot on the field by itself, not a second robot. And then there's a skills autonomous challenge, which is just your robot by itself, not a second robot, but you cannot use a remote control. So this is for the programmers. So there's called driver skills, and then there's called programming skills. So those are the 3 different ways. Teamwork challenge, it's called, I call it driver skills. It's technically called robot skills, and then programming skills. So those are the 3 different types to play it. Now let me break this down even more. So the beginning of the field, or the beginning of the game, one robot starts on one side of the field, another robot starts on the other side of the field. Oh, Andy, can you still hear me right now? Hopefully. Wait, I plugged in my headphones.
Yeah,
Can you
we
hear?
can. Yeah, we can hear you.
You can? Good, 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 good. All right, so one robot starts on one side of the field, one starts on the other. Those 5 balls I was telling you about, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 are on the right side, 5 are on the left side. If you just push these balls a left of that line, you get 5 points. You push these 5 balls to the right of that black line, you get 5 points. So when I told you, if you just can drive your robot and you'll get points, you literally could just have a robot smash into a wall, drive haphazardly over here, the balls roll off to the side, you got 5 points. You don't even have to be very skilled to do that. And then if you got lucky enough just to push any of these balls into this hopper, you get 2 balls for each point. So look at, this is inside the hopper, you get 2 points. And then 6 points for shooting into the hopper in the center. All right. And then at the end of the match, after 1 minute, when the buzzer rings, if your robot's off of the ground at all, hanging, you get 6 points. And then there's a second bar. If it hung above this bottom bar, you get 10 points. Okay, this is pretty advanced right now. Fling, my understanding, I believe, Fling can hang on the low hanging bar. I think. Don't quote me on it. Someone can test it out, tell me. I don't think it hangs on the 10-point bar, but I could also be wrong as well. So, any questions in the chat on this? Is a super kit foundation add-on to make 2 robots? The super kit is to make 1 robot. The foundation kit is extra parts for extra add-ons for anything you want to add to your robot. We buy the foundation kits because it used to be $80. Now that I think it's like $150, and I don't think we'll be able to afford this anymore. But when we bought it, it was $80, and it was every single part that's in the super kit except for motors, wires, remotes, or brains. So it was a great add-on kit at a great value, but they realized that they were selling it for too cheap. So now it's more expensive. 1 robot in the super kit. All competitions cover all methods of play. Some do, some don't. You got to look at it. Most have skills and teamwork, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Any questions about the point scoring? Again, there's 5 ways to score. Push the balls off the wall, 5 points. Push them into the little center over this little hump, 2 points for every ball. And then anything scored in the middle bucket, that's 6. Any
Hey,
questions?
George, can you answer the question in the chat? I am not sure how to answer that.
If I have VEX kids from our Project Lead the Way, can we use that as well? Any VEX IQ part is legal. There is Andy, look up VEX IQ illegal parts. There is a illegal part list, but one thing that's nice about these fields, the fields cost about $100 every year. The game elements. These game elements consist of VEX IQ parts. So every year when you're done with your field, you can take it apart and use these in the kit for your robot next year. But what Andy's going to put in the list is there are some illegal parts you cannot use. An example of an illegal part, maybe this pole. I bet you can't use this pole in your robot. But all of these parts you could use. Other questions about scoring? All right. I don't see any. I'm going to move on because we have a limited amount of time. What I would say, oh, David, these are like Legos. You can reuse them every single year. You just take it apart and start over. Now, some kids don't want to take their robot apart because they're so proud of it. So some teams have like a wall of fame of robots every year. If you're rich enough to afford to do that, go for it. But you probably have to buy a second kit the next year. So take it apart, start over. Andy just found the illegal parts. So you can use anything except for the things that are on that illegal part list. All right. There's a manual of like 30 pages that goes into much more detail, and everything I stole from the on this PowerPoint, these images are from the manual. So it should be your kid's job to know the manual. It's nice for you to just browse it and take a look at it just to be familiar with it, but your kids can always reference it. All right, as I said, there's 1 minute to score as many points as possible. Here are the starting zones. So your robot has to fit in a specific envelope, and we'll show you what that size requirement is here in a second. In the starting position, you could start here, 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 or here. And then the other team, which is called your alliance partner, can start in one of these 4 spots. So I think someone said in the comment, what I love about this is it's a teamwork challenge. This is not your robot against this robot. They're working together. They're called alliance partners. And before the match, you have usually 8 matches at a competition. Before the match, you need to strategize and talk with them to say, what are you going to do? What am I going to do? For example, it wouldn't make sense for this robot to go over here and clear these balls and this robot to do the same thing. Because think about it. If your robot has to go under this bar and go over here, you got all these balls over here and you have 2 robots over there, that's a waste of time. You only have a minute. So you might strategize, say, you go right, I'm going to go my right, you go your right, or you go this way, I'll go this way, whatever you want. Clear it, let's meet in the middle and just start shooting the balls in the center. That's our strategy. Great. The other neat thing that I love is you've got kids from Indianapolis talking to kids from Plymouth, Indiana. Or when you go to the World Championship, you've got kids from Israel talking to kids from Japan. Because, I mean, that is a wonderful experience for kids to have to communicate with kids that don't actually speak the same language, which sometimes even happens in Indiana. But that's a neat concept for kids to have to collaborate. Because in sports, the objective is to beat the you-know-what out of the other team. You're playing football, smash them, hit them hard, knock them down. Hopefully they're out of the game. In this, your points are your team members' points from the other school. You want to get the same amount of points or as many points as you can as the other robot on the field. All right, some other things I want to point out. Here we go. This is straight from the manual. Again, these 5 balls are off of or outside that line, so those are scored. This counts as long as it breaks the plane. That counts. That obviously counts. This, they talk about a sphere that goes up to the moon. I don't think they use the word moon, but what I'm getting at is this, they've got so many balls it's overflowing. This one counts right here, even though it's not fully in. So I don't know, if you're lucky enough to have a scenario that you have so many balls in there that are falling out, that's a good thing. They'll count anything that fits in this imaginary green cylinder. These are not scored. They're still along the wall. These are not scored. It looks like that one. Nope, that one's not. That one's not in. Okay. That one's not scored. All right. Raise your hand. How many of you have ever been to a robot competition? Anyone? Brooke has. That's it. That's okay. This is what this next screen is for. If you've never been to a robot competition, oh, Jamie has. Cool. If you've ever been to Jennifer, awesome. If you've ever been to a robot competition, that's fine. But your first time you go, it's kind of intimidated. It's a little overwhelming. Some people will say, well, should I attend one in person before my team going? And I say, if you can physically attend a competition, take your team and have them compete. Don't waste a weekend just observing. Yes, it would be a great experience. And if there are plenty of competitions in your area to do that, yes, do that. If you only have 2 competitions and you want to observe the first one and attend the second, no. Go to both. Now, here's how it starts. Everything's in order. This is an opening ceremony. Kids are in uniform. Everyone's sitting in the crowd. This is what it looks like during the event. Hectic, chaos. Kids are running everywhere. So do not go to an event alone. You have to bring someone with you and probably multiple people, because you have 6 kids, but there's going to be like, I don't know, 40 teams times 6 kids times the parents and siblings that are attending. So that's why a lot of teachers like having bright orange shirts or yellow shirts so you can keep track of the kiddos. They're all in schools. They're usually all in 1 room or 2. So the gym might be where the competition is, but there might be a cafeteria adjacent where the pits are. So let me explain that. All right, so this is the pit, and it's typically just a table where you can put your batteries, your chargers, your laptop, extra parts, things like that. Your kids' jackets, maybe lunches they pack. This is like the home base. And then the field, the event you might have 1, 2, 3. This has 1, 2, 3, 4 fields. And then there's an audience, usually sitting in a gymnasium and the bleachers. And then the skills field's off to the side. So someone asked, are all 3 of these going to be on an event? You'll have to check the website when you sign up for an event, and it's going to say all the events will be teamwork challenge. They'll all have the teamwork element. Some, based on capacity, can offer the skills, and it's usually off to the side. And if they offer skills, they offer both driver and programming. So skills, if they offer it, they're going to have both. Skills is optional. Some schools at a competition will never go to the skills field. I always encourage everyone, just try it. It doesn't hurt your score, and it has nothing to do with the teamwork challenge score. So just go for it. Try it. All right, here's what you're going to see at your first event. You're going to get, once all the teams check in, they're going to print off a match list. Let's pretend we're team 22222D. All of you have a number and a letter after your team number. I say highlight all your matches. You'll notice there's a time. That's not ever, I always say this is robot time, and robots are never on time. So what you really care about is the match number. And you want to see what match are they on. They're on match 1 right now. Okay, well, we're match 3, should probably get ready. And then, look at this. Right after match 3, we're match 5. So we don't have a lot of time. We might not be able to go back to the pits. You should probably go back after your first match, back in the end of the line to queue. But look at, here's another thing I want to point out. This shows you who you're paired up with. Our first match, we're with team 9842829A. They're from Goshen, Indiana. We're from Plymouth, Indiana. Oh, cool. So we had to talk to the Goshen team. Oh, and then here's team 6471D. They're from Mishawaka, Indiana. Okay, I got to talk to them before this match. Not you. Your kids have to talk to them. So you'll notice every match you're going to be paired up with another random team. Your first competition, you're going to be the team that sucks. And you're going to be the team that doesn't do well. And you're going to be paired up with a team that usually does better. Probably. Every year there's first-year teams that prove me wrong and make it to state and go to Worlds, and they're excellent. But again, setting low expectations for your competition element and being good is a good thing. You don't want to try to be go into this thinking you'll be the best. Where I'm going with this is that sometimes you're going to be paired with a team that can do a lot. Times you're going to be paired with a team that cannot do a lot. So talk and communicate, come up with a strategy. The kids can do this in line while they're waiting. That's the cool part. I already mentioned this, so just to reiterate, a teamwork challenge, you'll get 8 matches. Every 4 matches, they throw away the lowest score. So that's pretty cool. So if the kids have a bad match, you can say, oh, that's okay. They'll probably throw that away. You can only say that 2 times. It's a joke I tell every single time. So the kids can only make 2 major mistakes. Skills challenge, there's the driver and the programming or autonomous. The robot skills challenge is just driver controlled. It's the same game. It's the same rules. It's just your robot in 1 minute. The programming challenge is the same game, the same rules, but no remote control. They have to put the remote down and they hit play on the brain. Any questions about teamwork challenge or skills? Okay, moving on. You can see this is a teamwork challenge because there's a team here. It looks like the Pink Lightning team. It's got their robot. There's 2 kids. 1 kid has the remote. After 30 seconds, it's going to go to the second kid. And then here's another group of kids. It's the Mary Castle Robotics team. He's driving, and then he's going to hand it to him. There's their robot. You can't see the other robots behind it. This is skills challenge. 1 robot, and they're not touching a remote unless there's a remote in this kid's hoodie, but that would be cheating. So this is a programming skills challenge. Any questions? Just an example. Great. All right. This is an example how scoring works. So we talked about the match you're with, the alliance partner and you get the same score. So if we're team 1 in our first round, we're with team 2, we get 20 points. Both of us get 20 points. And then round 2, we're team 1, we're paired up with team 3. Ooh, team 3 is probably really good. So we got 30 points. So we now have 50 points. So if an overall ranking of team 1, 20 points plus 30 points is 50 points. We're winning right now. We're pretty good. Now, if you look at the other teams, like team 2, they got 20 points. In the next match, they only got 10. Team 4 might not be very good. But team 2 got 10 points their second match. So sometimes you're going to be paired up with a team that's good. Sometimes you'll be paired up with a team that's not good. That is the luck of the draw. That's why you guys have to communicate, collaborate together in the matches to maximize your points. This is a typical agenda. You'll check in the morning. They will all inspect your robots. I'm going to talk. Excuse me. I'm going to talk about inspection here in a second. There's an entire section in the manual that talks about your requirements for your robot. Mostly it comes down to is how many motors and the size of your robot. And I'll say that here in a second. And then teamwork matches are typically 10:30 to noon. Then they have lunch. I put this in here on purpose because some matches only have skills during certain periods of time. So this skills is 10:30 to noon, and then after lunch, they don't have skills. So some teams get surprised when they only had skills open for an hour and a half. That's because they didn't have enough volunteers to manage the skills field afternoon. So just be cautious of that, of checking out when the skills fields are. Some teams or events do it during lunch when the fields aren't being used. And then mostly you're out of here by 3:30. So it's an 8 to 3:30 on a Saturday. Early, you're out of there early in the afternoon, just in time for some Purdue football. All right, here is a quick match. You know what? I'm gonna have to come back to this because we're running out of time and I have a lot to cover. So if I have time, I'm gonna come back to this video. This is more of a icing on top. This is that second story about Napa Neo I was gonna tell you. So I'm gonna fast forward, and if we have time, we'll go through it. General rules: 1 minute a match, 2 drivers rotate between drivers between 25 and 35 seconds. What I mean by that is the clock is gonna count down. 59, 58, blah, 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 blah. At 35 seconds, you're going to hear a little ding. That's a warning to tell the kids that you need to hand that remote off in the next 10 seconds. So I say 30 seconds. It's technically between 25 and 35 seconds. They have to hand off the remote. And then there'll be a second ding at 25 seconds. The nice thing is the referees are there to guide the kids. Not blow a whistle, not hand out a red card. You're not disqualified. The refs will tell the kids, no, hand the remote up, hand the remote up. All right, you're good. So they're there to help them. They're there to coach them. And there's actually rules against coaching from the stands. You don't get to be there with the kids. You don't get to stand there next to kids, and you don't get to shout out the instructions. That's why there's 2 kids up there. They coach each other. And then the refs are advised to be polite and help the kids, not disqualify or dock out points. So 2 drivers. A lot of people ask, should I have the same driver at every competition? It's up to you. I suggest your first competition, let anyone that wants to drive. After your second competition, if you make it to state, you should probably have an A team and a B team. These 2 drivers always work together, and these 2 drivers always work together, and you can rotate. These are my odd teams. These are my even matches. So first match, these 2. Even match, these 2. Rotate them. Doesn't matter. All right. Rules: 1 robot brain. That's what comes in the kit. 6 motors. We only give you 4 motors. You're allowed to have up to 6. We used to buy 2 extra motors, but no one ever used them. Most first year and even second year teams only use 4 motors. I think you'll be fine there with 4. I don't think you need to go and buy 6 motors or 2 extras. This is very, 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 very important. Hopefully you're awake and you hear this. Your robot must fit, and this is kind of confusing. I'll explain it. I'll answer any questions. Must fit in an imaginary 11-inch by 19-inch imaginary box. And sometimes that competition, they'll have an imaginary box. And it can't be any taller than 15 inches. Now, once the match starts, this is the complicated part, is that it can actually go up higher to reach that top bar up to 19 inches. But your robot must, if it has an arm, so a little arm that reaches up, that arm has to stay below 15 inches at the start of the match. And once it goes up, it can't go taller than 19. So imaginary box, 11 by 19 by 15. Match starts, 11 by 19 by 19 once the match starts. Hopefully that made sense. Your kid should be measuring this thing all the time. I hate it when a kid shows up to an event and gets inspected and it's 22 inches long. And I'm going, 11 by 19 by 15, guys. Like, it's the rules. You got to measure it. 19 inches at your school is 19 inches at your competition. The measurements don't change. All right. Any questions on measurements? This is the most important part of when the kids are building. They have to stay within these constraints. So the robots can't expand length or width past, correct. Width, length, 11 by 19. Now, your robot can be like this, or it can be like this, but no wider than a 19, no longer than 11. Or you could say no longer than 19, no wider than 11. Doesn't matter the orientation, but no 11. If this is your 11, then this has to be your 19. Cool. I've already said this. Most teams sign up for 2 competitions. The good teams sign up for 3 or 4. You all want to go to at least 2 competitions, maybe state, maybe worlds. It's not uncommon. Number 1 advice I've already said, go to more than 1 competition. There is a link here on how to find competitions and how to sign up for a competition. So check out that video. I'm not going to go through it. We're running out of time. Kit of parts. I'm not going to open up the kit of parts, but what I'm going to show you, it's coming here in a second. What I'm going to show you, I can't believe this was in 2017. Look at it, I haven't even changed. I'm wearing the same exact polo. I'm kidding. This is a different polo. But I unboxed the entire VexIQ Super Kit. So if you were, if you adopted your team and there's a kit in your closet somewhere, you acquired a kit, you have it from Project Lead the Way someone asked. If you have access to VexIQ parts, I go through all the contents of a basic VexIQ kit. I go through everything in there and what the manual is. I go in there and show you what the brain is, how to turn it on, how to connect it to your radio, how to connect it to motors, how to insert your batteries. I mean, it's a 30-minute video, and that's why we're not going to spend 30 minutes tonight, because you guys can watch this video on your own at your leisure with your own super kit or any of the parts that you have in your classroom. And if you've got a bunch, you want to take a picture of it and send it to me and say, hey, what is this? I'm happy to help you. This is
Hey,
what
George.
Yeah.
Brandy had a question about the kits that she has. So they got the kits from coaches training a couple years ago and the game elements. Is that all that she'll need for this year?
You got a kit and got a new coaches training 3 organization. What is it? It's called. I ordered the full game elements kit for those. So what you would need, yes, if it's a kit from 3 or 4 years, that's the super kit. That's what this is. It should have 4 motors, a brain, a remote, and a battery. And then the only other thing is the field. You need to have the field, and the field this year is 8 foot by 6 foot. If it's a field from 3 or 4 years ago, it's probably 8 foot by 4 foot. There's a 2 foot add-on for like 100, 150 bucks. You got the game elements. That's it. You're set. So super kit, game, and there's a slide back right here. Here's the field. Here's the game elements. Here's the super kit. This is all you need right here. That's it. That's all you need. Cool, cool, cool. Just a couple things I'm going to point out. I say this in the video. We only have 6 minutes. There's a poster in your super kit. This is a great thing to hang on the wall. These are true size and shape. So if kids are looking for a gear, they could put it up to the poster. It's the exact same size on the posters as in the kits, and it has the right name and how many teeth are on it. This is great for your kids to learn these names, so when they're talking to the judges, they can communicate effectively. I organize my bin like this or like this. Kids, if you guys have any access to these carts, they're so helpful because they're on wheels, and the kids can push them out to their tables, and then you can go roll this into a closet or whatever. I have teachers that will print this out and put it on top of the lid of the box and say at the end of practice, this needs to look, this needs to look like this by the end. So just something to think about if you like organization. This is your controller. It's just like a Xbox or PlayStation controller. If you guys haven't played with it, your kids know how to use it. This is analog, meaning the harder they push forward, the faster the wheels rotate. The less they push, the slower it goes. One advice I give kids the first time they drive is I tell them they cannot touch this center toggle to the end, meaning they can't go full speed. They have to drive it with slow precision before I let them go full speed. So anyway, that's a suggestion. This is the brain. This is the most expensive thing. Yes, it can be dropped and it probably will survive, but it probably can't be dropped 10 times. It'll probably break. Same with the remote control. So don't let the kids drop these parts. These are, it'd be like dropping a laptop. There is a radio in here. Yours is probably blue like this. Do not pull this out. Do not let the kids pull this out. It needs to stay in there, and it matches your remote. For those of you that have multiple kits or you buy a second or third kit, I would label this 1 or A and label this 1 or A. Because if you buy a second one, those talk to one another. What's worse is if you go to a competition, you grab the wrong remote and it doesn't operate that robot because they're the wrong ones. So kids will they'll color code and put blue sticker, green sticker, and green sticker, or label it A and A, B and B, and so forth. So if you have multiple kits, multiple remotes and brains, label them so you don't get them mixed up. This is how you turn it on and off. I go over this in that video. Already talked about that. This is your brain battery. This is the this is the only consumable part. So Brandy's example, she had a kit sitting in it for 3 or 4 years. This might be dead. There is a video. Andy, if you can find the video on how to jump start your robot brain battery, I'd be impressed if you could find that and put in the link. I really challenge you now. There's a trick on how you can spin the wheels to a motor and jump start your robot battery. Otherwise, these are $20. They do last about 2 or 3 years. And then there's a battery inside your remote control. This thing is going to last forever. It's going to last for a long time. This is how you charge it. I'm not gonna go into this. This is one thing I want to point out. These are called smart cables. I talk about it in the video. They're like telephone cables. And the thing is, kids do not grow up with landlines in their homes, so they don't know how to pull the cables out. So they break them. They have to push the little clip down. So make sure they, hey, you found it, Andy. I am impressed. You're a YouTube wizard. So make sure you teach the kids how to use a phone cable. I thought that was funny when I learned that. 4 smart motors, you can use up to 6. Like I said, you don't need to buy more. These are the Bex I-beams. They're called Bex IQ beams. They have, there's female and male parts, just like in Legos. These don't have the male parts. You have to use the pin connectors to connect these. But when they connect, they're very strong and solid, much more strong and durable than Legos. So these are pin connectors that go into these holes. And I play in the video how to remove these because they're kind of a pain in the butt to try to remove once they go into the connectors, or when the connectors go into the beams. Corners, standoffs, these are axles. Use metal axles when you can, even if the instructions say otherwise. I love metal axles. Plastic axles wear over time and they bend and break. The only other thing I'd point out is that some of these axles have little standoffs on them. This has a standoff here. This is about a 1/4 off standoff. These don't have any standoff. So just take a note of those for your kids to know that there's different version axles. Gears are different than pulleys. Gears have teeth. Pulleys do not. You have 4 or 5 different electronics. Here's a bumper switch. Here's an LED touch sensor. Here's a distance finder. Here's a gyro sensor and a color sensor. None of you will use any of these your first year, so I wouldn't worry about it. This out of the box, first time you use it, is how your robot will drive. Left side will operate the left wheels. Right side will operate the right wheels. Kids will have to learn how to drive like this. Is called tank drive. Here's how most kids drive. Oh my gosh, I'm almost out of time. More of XIQ YouTube videos on over all of these parts. Check it out. Instructions, I talk about it in the video. Here's Fling. Here's the one you want to build. But there's a library on that link of all these other robots. This is the one you want to build. And when I talked about do not start over, the kids can start over, but they shouldn't go past the drive phase. So if it can, just so it can move. So they can modify these parts, but try not to take care of the drive phase. Hey, I finished, and it's exactly 6 o'clock. There's a question in here. Is there any specific type of device that programming works best on? Laptops work best. There is an iPad version. You can use iPad, but it's called Bex Code Blocks, Bex IQ Code Blocks. It's free. There's an entire video that I go over on training on how to code your robot for the first time. But anyway, if there's any other questions, I'm going to stick around for a little bit. Sorry I didn't get to show the Napa knee video, but I talk about it a couple different times, so you can check out some of my other videos if you guys were dying to see the Napa knee EagleBot video. I just want to thank you all so much for taking on the fun, challenging job of being a robotics coach. Again, we're here to help you. It can be one of the best things that you do in your educational career. I've heard coaches, and you might not like this, I hear teachers say they were nearing retirement and they just would not give up teaching because robotics kind of gave them a newfound passion for teaching kids. So I hope you guys wish you the best of luck. It is challenging, but it'll be one of the best things you can provide your kids. So thank you all so much. Andy and I will be around for the next couple of minutes. If you guys have any other questions, let me know if you have help with anything. Best of luck to all of you. See you guys at a competition. Hopefully we'll see you at state at Lucas Oil. Even if you don't make it, you're welcome to come. It's free to attend. Any other questions, put in the chat. Or you can unmute yourselves, I guess. We've been really mean to you and muting you all. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Good luck this year. Any other questions? Nope, just thank yous and goodbyes. All right. Andy, thanks. Kathleen, do you have a question? Oh, yeah, Kevin, go ahead.
So we didn't have a team last year due to COVID. So with that kit that we got last year, I just need the field and the game elements.
That's
correct?
it. You got it. And then did we have you talked to Jamie about paying for your registration already?
I got to pay the fee, she said. Again, that last year's fee wasn't going to cover this year's fee in an email I got.
Email Jamie and CC me. And if you didn't get to compete last year, we should be able to pay for your registration fee.
Okay.
And I'll get myself in trouble and just say, George said during training, my registration fee should be covered because I didn't get to compete last year. And then I'll tell Jamie I may have made a mistake, so I'm sorry, but we'll get it figured out. And CC me to that email and I'll help out.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Kathleen, did you have a question? What's up? Oh, you're muted, right? You know that. You're
Yes.
perfect. What's up?
I'm a new to the coaching. I have refed for years. I'm a digital innovation leader, so we work with schools with robotics. So I know about them, but I've never coached before. So I say all that to say, I know you said that we want the kids building the robots and obviously doing the coding with them. I hear so much that so many that the adults are building the robots, and so I guess I'm confused as to maybe like where to start with that with the kids.
Don't build it. Don't listen to them. They're wrong, and they're either lying, they're uninformed, or they're doing it wrong.
Okay.
So I don't know how to say that any more kindly, but you should not be building the robots, and you should not be programming the robots. You will run into some teams that don't do this with the right spirits. So you don't want to go down that route. There's no need for it. This is for the kids. Now, you will go to some events and you'll see robots that are amazing, and you're like, there's no way kids built that. I would say, I don't know, if I made a guess, 90% of the robots are built by kids. And then there's 10% bad apples out there. And a few of them are like a science project where it's like, well, that kid didn't build that volcano, the dad did. And so that happens in robotics just like in anything. But no, there is not a program that I would endorse where the adults are building the robots and the kids are watching. That's the wrong way to do it.
Right. And I figured as much, and I've seen that. I've seen the really good ones that parents have done or the coaches or whatever. But I guess my concern, so I'm an educator in Kentucky, and then my kids go in Indiana. So that's why they weren't going to do it if they didn't have a coach. So I was like, well, I know enough to be dangerous. So
yeah, good.
So I'm going to do, and I'm a teacher, so I can do the coaching part, but I just didn't know if like once a week, an hour and a half or 2 hours or whatever with the kids is going to be enough time if it's so difficult.
I kind of browsed over that. An hour and a half is a typical practice for elementary kids. Middle school can maybe manage 2. Once a week is pretty common. Once you get closer to the event, you're talking 2 or 3. It's like, it turns into, we're under pressure. Oh my gosh, we need more time. So you start having second or third practices in the week, but once a week is pretty common. Okay. And the only thing I would say is, no, I do not want adults touching the robots. Now, if adult is picking up parts and saying, have you thought of doing something like this and putting something together and then taking it apart and saying, you try, I'm okay with that. But they should not be, I have seen it. And in fact, when I see it, I talk to the adults and I say, that is not how, there's a rule against specifically that. Like their team could be disqualified from an event.
Right. I worry that I'm going to get there and parents are going to tell me, like, I'm just preparing myself for when I get there, and parents that didn't want to volunteer to be the coach are going to tell me that. So I'm just double checking, triple checking. So
I'm going to pull up the manual while I think Sarah might have a question. I'll pull up the manual while we're talking. And I'll pull up that rule. Randy knows it off the top of the head. It's like G32 or something. But there's a manual that talks specifically about this.
Yeah.
Sarah, did you have a question? Yeah,
Chromebook's being super laggy. Yeah, I'm new as well. Our robotics coach became a firefighter like a couple weeks ago, so I'm kind of hopping on. And it's cool. It's just I don't have a lot of experience with teaching coding to kids. So I was curious what the best way is to kind of like unveil the information to the kids. Like I'm a science teacher, I totally am on board with like them doing it all, and I'm just a facilitator, but you know what I mean?
Yep. So I found, it's called G2. Kathleen, I just put it in the chat. That's exactly, it's on page 10 of the manual. I'm going to put the manual in here. And then Sarah, to your point, here's what I would suggest. Programming is like icing on the cake at secondary. The very first thing I think that you guys should worry about is when you build the robot, you put in the battery, turn it on in the remote, that thing's ready to drive and play the game. So I would focus 80% of your efforts and 80% of your practice for now, your first year, is just get the robot built, get it to turn on and drive and play the game, and then say, what are the limitations to playing right now? How do we improve this? And have the kids start redesigning and making it better. Maybe pick up 2 balls instead of 1. Maybe hang on this high goal versus the lower. Let's see if we can, is it fast enough to drive on the far wall and the other wall and push the balls? Are we going to push them inside, or are we going to pick up and throw them? Like, what's the best strategy? While kids, if you had a team of 6 or 8, while kids are redesigning, replaying, you grab 1 or 2 that want to program, and they can start programming off to the side. And they don't need the robot. They can program off the side, and then you carve out in a 2-hour meeting that the programmers get access to the robot for 30 minutes. So if our practice is from 4 to 6, 5 o'clock, those kiddos, the programmers get it from 5 to 5:30. So they get an hour to prep the code, maybe pull up 3 different versions of what they want, and then at 5 o'clock, it's theirs. They test it out, and then off they go. Now, you ask, how do I, as a teacher, I'm going to pull up my YouTube page, and I'm going to put it in the link here. There's a video that a guy named Dallas Goker, excuse me, is a really good coach, beginner programming. Now, this is a long video, but it's kid friendly. You could literally give these, it's an hour and a half, if I said that already. That's a video that will literally walk you through from I've never coded before to writing my first line of code. And he does this in a way where he shares the video screen of the program that he's creating and a webinar video of the robot. And so he's like, here's the code, here's what it does. And he walks you through it, and he does a great, great job. I mean, he's an electrical engineer himself and a programmer by trade. So that is enough to get your kids
great, wonderful,
dangerous.
blah, blah, blah.
Okay, it's good. Go ahead.
So I was saying that's enough. That video is enough to get your kids dangerous to just start experimenting on their own.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And you can't break anything from programming. Like you can always just hit reset, and I mean, there's always going to be the initial driving called driver control that gets the robot to operate. They can't screw it up by programming.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. I was just going to say too to Sarah. Also, I think with the coding, even with like in Minecraft EDU and a bunch of the other platforms for elementary, there's the same type of coding. So showing them that part, that way they can practice those at home. And then when they come with you, they kind of have a basic concept of you drag and drop for the code, the block code to talk or whatever. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's very graphical, user friendly. Drag and drop. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Sarah, have you ever played with Scratch or heard of Scratch?
Not Scratch. I forget I don't know. I can't remember what program our district uses. I've like messed with it a few times, but not.
Yeah, it is literally drive forward for 12 inches, turn left 90 degrees. Like it is that simple of commands that for the kiddos to get started.
Okay. I'm glad it's intuitive.
That and code.org too. So that's what I'm going to have them do is just to practice that part. So then, like you said, you can spend more time on building the robots, even though that's what everyone is telling me I'm doing wrong until today. So I'm glad that my inner teacher was like, something is not right about this.
Yeah. Are these Kentucky teams? The Indiana teams?
Kentucky teams.
See, I
work for JCPS, so Jefferson County.
Okay.
In Louisville, Kentucky.
I just say that the reason I say that is everyone that's gotten our grant, which is of those 2,100 teams, is I mean, almost all of them have gotten our grant, go through this training where I talk just about that. So if coaches are doing that, they're deliberately not listening to me say, hey, this is a student-built team, student-run team. Not every team operates like that. There are some coaches that disagree with me that kids learn by seeing, not doing, and I don't agree with that. I've been a tech ed teacher that I think kids learn a lot more by hands-on and
maybe
failing.
seeing it and then doing it.
Yeah.
Maybe visually seeing the end product, but then doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Kentucky, I think their vet, like it's a different sponsor or different people. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, thank you
for
both for sticking around. If you guys ever have any questions, let me know.